All right, well, welcome to another exciting episode of Hard Hats and Heart, Human-Centered Innovation. I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safeopedia. Want to welcome you to the show. I'll turn it over to Sarah in a sec to kick things off. But just again, we think it's important, to put innovation and change in perspective and definitely, attempting to kind of humanize, if I can say, the change management, the implementation and innovation side of technology with hard hats and heart. And definitely we'll have some information below in the description to connect with the Safeopedia community, where we'll be having these sorts of sessions on a regular basis, and also a link to our newsletter so you can get updates as to when the next episode's coming and how to stay connected with Safeopedia and with Sarah. So with that, I want to introduce the host of the show, Sarah Bellini Ross, who's going to kick things off and dive into today's topic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. My name is Sarah Bellini Ross, co-founder of Evolving Innovation, a safety consulting firm really focusing on emerging technology and ergonomics and trying to make the workplaces the best they possibly can be. It's my honor today to have Andrei with us. I had the pleasure of meeting him last fall at NSC's Safety Innovation Challenge, where his company was the winner of the Innovation Challenge. And we're really excited to learn more about his entrepreneurial journey today and how he's kind of risen to success at such a young age. So I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and then we'll just jump in.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Scott. I'm really happy to be here, and I hope I can get people to ignite their passion for health safety and for technology and kind of marry this two into play. Yeah, I'm Andrei Feraru. I'm the managing director of Feraru Dynamics Limited. We've introduced HAV Sentry to the marketplace about a year and a half ago, and we've had a lot of success in the UK. Recently, had some success in the US as well. Yeah, I'm really, again, very happy to be here. Always happy to talk about safety and technology. And I really believe that the next generation of workers will be a lot better protected because of technology.
So tell us about HAV Sentry. What exactly is it?
So HAV Sentry is a system that prevents hand-arm vibration syndrome. So it's essentially a glove with sensors on the palm of the hand that measure vibration according to ISO 5349 and prevent hand-arm vibration by alerting the user in real time when to stop, when to take a break, when to do a job rotation. And then all of the data is obviously coupled to a cloud system. And with that, companies and organizations can provide control measures to tackle hand-arm vibration. Our approach is really focused on hand-arm vibration control measures. So it's not about continuous using, it's not about gathering data that you end up doing nothing with. It's really about root cause analysis, tackling the problem, and then solving that for the employees that work with vibrating power tools. So that could be grinders, jackhammers, polishers, landscaping equipment like chainsaws and grass cutters. It's really a wide range of industries that employ people to work with their hands fixed on a vibrating machinery, and we're trying to protect them.
So what gave you the idea to do this? How did you get started?
Right. I was 22 at the time when I first got engaged with this industry. I was actually an employee of Rolls-Royce Aerospace, a company that does airplane engines. And I figured out there's a gap in the market. There's clearly a problem that the aerospace industry is dealing with, and claims are coming through. In the UK, the government is finding businesses and going over, coming for inspections and things like that, specifically for vibration. And there was a clear problem at the time with vibration exposure. So initially I proposed an improvement project to Rolls-Royce, and I started prototyping devices to measure vibration more accurately and understand the root cause of the problem. As I was doing that, people started telling me this is a patent essentially, and you shouldn't really let the company own it. You should start your own business and kind of sell it to the whole industry. So I went back to Coventry University, where I did my mechanical engineering degree. And I told them, look, I have this idea. I think there's potential within the aerospace business to implement this, and they're on board. So can you help me start a company? Because I didn't know how to do that. I was only 22, and I was a mechanical engineer, so I was very scientifically minded and an engineer at heart. And I think I still am. I'm still struggling to kind of like manage people and deal with the personalities and all that kind of stuff. But engineering is still what I like to do and what I'm really good at. So yeah, I went back to university. They helped me apply for a patent, start a business, gave me office space, gave me access to all of the facilities to continue my testing and prototyping. We made connections with angel investors. We started raising funds to build a team around the idea, and that's how we got started.
What was the biggest challenge you faced during that process?
I think there were multiple challenges, but probably the biggest one was the fact that we didn't have any money. So we had no money to start with, and I think we worked, me and a team of another 3 people, worked for about 8 months without getting paid. Obviously now we know it's 8 months, but at the time we didn't know, how long it would be. So yeah, we had to pull ourselves together and kind of encourage each other all the time that, it's worth it, let's keep going and not look for jobs.
How did you involve users during that design and testing phase of the glove?
So I attended conferences, health safety conferences here in the UK, and started understanding the marketplace. Who are the players that already provide solutions, what kind of solutions they provide, how do they describe them, and got engaged with different occupational hygienists. Obviously, my background being aerospace and working for Rolls-Royce, I already had connections with certain very competent occupational hygienists, and they've invited me to present at one of the conferences called the British Occupational Hygiene Society, BOHS. So after I presented my idea and what I'm working on, people kind of came to me and said, I think, it's great. It's really needed. There's nothing like this. And we got started. I think the first trial we had was at a company called Ineos. One of the occupational hygienists there was kind enough to invite us on site, understand their processes, and deploy our first ever prototype to get feedback from the users and the operators. And I still remember it was a prototype that had something on the sleeve. So we had a sleeve, and then the cable was running all the way to the forearm, and that's where we had the alert system. And the idea came about because we had to tackle the visibility of the alert system. So we knew that people would have gloves on top no matter what, because they had to protect themselves against many other hazards, especially within Ineos, which was a chemical and still is a chemical based production company. So immediately we figured out that it won't work, because as soon as you move your wrist, you would disconnect the cable or something will happen, or it's just not stable. So initially we got a lot of good feedback just within the first few months to kind of push us to the right funnels to get the design right. And then we worked with the local council. The university obviously helped us in the beginning to set up the business, so they became a shareholder. And because they were a shareholder, they introduced us to different areas of the city, and one of them was the highways team. So we worked very closely with the highways team of Coventry City Council, and we provided them with all of our designs to just understand what the limitations of each are. And we gathered all of those ideas, made a QFD diagram, and kind of went through the design process the way we've learned it at university, right? As engineers, all of our team members were engineers. We didn't have any salespeople, marketing people from the beginning. Now we have some, but we're at a different stage. But at the beginning, we were all engineers trying to solve a problem.
What was the role of the end user in figuring out that problem? Did you have a good idea of it before you got started, or did you really need the insight from those end users?
I think, yes, I had a vision of what the product should look like. And it ended up being very similar to my original design, but only now in 6 years after, it wasn't really feasible to design that and make that from the beginning, because we started with 3D printing it, and it was quite expensive to do flexible PCBs and flexible materials like TPU, for example, on 3D printers. So we started. I think we did need that feedback from users. It wasn't without that, I don't think we could have made it really. So that was very important to have feedback on comfort specifically, but also on ease of use as well. So we know, for example, operators don't like to be disrupted, right, in their workflows. So we made our system in the way that you just wear it and do your work. You just wear it in the morning. You have to pair once to identify yourself, who's actually generating the data. So the risk assessment is then personalized to that individual, but then you don't have to tag any other tools or do any other tool tagging or any type of interaction with the system itself. And that's one thing that we differentiate ourselves with from other solutions out there, because most of the solutions out there actually require you to tag the tools or input some manual figures or disrupt the work process to press buttons or just stop and start measurements and things like that. With our system, you just wear it and it measures every single second of the work shift. You have data on walking around, you have data on doing actual work with vibration, you have data on your lunch breaks and everything. So it just records everything, and then it makes sense of the data as well in the background with the algorithms on the dashboard.
How's the engagement been with the workforce? What do they think about the solution?
I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges we faced. There is multiple levels of entry to deploying and implementing the technology. The workers are probably the first point of entry. If they don't like it or if they don't want to work with it, it's over. It doesn't matter how much the company wants it or management or the directors. So it's very important to get workers on board from the very beginning. The most important aspect for them is comfort, I think, and then ease of use would come immediately after. There is an element of privacy as well, and an element of, let's say, resistance to change or even fear of being monitored or being watched over, or the Big Brother effect in that sense. So we faced all of them one by one, sometimes 2 or 3 together, and it was very interesting. especially on the council work, so the public sector, where people are a lot more reluctant to change, and the fear of the Big Brother effect is more relevant for them for some reason.
Did you find any secrets or like any magic formula to kind of overcome that Big Brother fear and to get the buy-in from workers?
Yes, yeah, 100%. I think we learned this the hard way. So we've had meetings where people walked in the room saying the first thing, literally first thing out of their mouth was, "I'm not wearing that. That's not going to help me." And then they sit down and listen to my presentation. So that was a real situation. We walked in, and at the end of that meeting, I went and spent a one-to-one with that person, and at the end of it, he said, "You know what? I think you're doing the right thing, and we should really wear it." And then he asked for 3 pairs of gloves from their employer, and that actually created a bit of friction with the purchasing department. But it was essentially understanding that, well, there are 2 elements of it. First is obviously safety. This is the purpose, right? It's not about monitoring your break time or monitoring what you do in outside of work. It's about keeping you safe, and as long as they understand that, that's fine. So that's number one, and it's a hard sell because it's not obvious that it's only for that. And then number 2 is leadership, and the management needs to be the relationship needs to be strong. If the relationship between leadership and the workforce is not trust based, then it's very difficult to get something implemented successfully. So we tried to have management and leadership at all the meetings, and we specifically made the presentation tailored to cater for the worker needs, and we emphasized and we made it very clear that you can look at the data and identify break times, but it's not gonna work to to enforce anything. And eventually, I think with the public sector specifically, that's where the challenges were most relevant. The leadership finally reached a point where they said, we provide you the solution. If you want to wear it, you wear it. If you don't want to wear it, that's fine. But then in a few years' time, if you do have a claim for vibration, we told you to wear it, you didn't wear it, we're off the hook in that sense. So that kind of made everyone say, fine, we have to wear it. And because data is providing transparency, and that's what people need to understand. And if they do that, then they accept the fact that it's about safety. Don't want to get to that conversation, but that's the that's the last resort in that sense.
Yeah. For our listeners that aren't aware of the hazards of vibration, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, yeah, sure. So people that work more than a few hours a day with vibrating power tools, or some vibrating power tools could be just half an hour a day, and that's enough, but they have to be really heavy stuff like jackhammers. But if you work with vibration every single day, that's your job, then within a year or 2, maybe 3, you would develop hand-on vibration syndrome and symptoms that are permanent, so you never get rid of them. And there's no rehabilitation program, there's no way of solving the problem once you have it. Symptoms always start with neurological symptoms, so numbness, tingling in your fingertips, and then they progress towards musculoskeletal damage, so damage to the median nerve, damage to the fingers, to the muscles of the hand and to the bones, and that's really painful. It's really restrictive. It kind of restricts your hand grip ability, the motion that you can do with your wrist. It's usually associated with carpal tunnel syndrome, And people blame that on carpal tunnel syndrome sometimes without even realizing it's vibration that caused the problem in the first place. And then the very advanced stages go into vascular symptoms. So you lose blood flow in your fingertips, essentially. And as soon as you get into cold weather conditions, the blood drains from your fingertips, and it's very painful when it then comes back into your fingertips. And that happens because essentially you are telling your brain you don't want blood in your fingers because you're pushing it out every single day for more than a few hours a day. So the brain says, fine, I'm going to close the vessels and you don't get blood there anymore because you don't want it there. And then the problem happens, and that's irreversible. And that's when the claims usually start.
And is it the claims that really drove the regulation in the UK, or how did the regulations for hand arm vibration come to play?
Right, so it was in the 1970s initially when vibration white finger was discovered, and it was called vibration white finger initially. It was a doctor from a company called GKN that first encountered this and said this is because of vibration. So this was identified in the 70s, but it wasn't until 2005 when the first ISO standard was set in place, and that was ISO 5349. And since then, the government regulated in Europe and the UK. The government started regulating the work with power tools very strictly, and required companies to implement control measures. Then in 2017, there was a revision on this ISO standard because of advancements in technology. Sensor technology got very, very small, and you can now fit sensors on the body without really knowing they're there. So you can measure vibration a lot more accurately. So in 2017, there was a revision saying you can now use handheld adapters to measure vibration for the purpose of hand-arm vibration. That really created a lot of chaos especially in the UK, where the government was starting to get stricter and stricter with inspections, fines, notices of improvement, and things like that. There were, I think, 3 or 4 companies that started building wearable technology in 2017, 2018. And surprisingly enough, nobody got it right. So they were putting the accelerometers in very strange places, like on the wrist or on the tool, just anywhere on the tool. They were zip tying it, or with Play-Doh. I've seen it with Play-Doh, stuck on the tool. That was the period in which I was doing my research, and I was of understanding this. So I saw the gap and started working on my own version of the device. And then in 2018, when we officially started, we got in touch with the health and safety executive in the UK, and we told them, I think your guidance needs to be improved because there is now equipment that can measure vibration on the palm of the hand, and it respects the ISO standard that was revised in 2017. Because after this period of chaos, the government in the UK issued a statement saying there is currently no glove or wrist-mounted device that can measure vibration according to ISO 5349. Therefore, you can't use this data in a risk assessment. And that kind of prompted me to say, there's the word currently in that sentence, so that means there will be eventually the first glove or wrist-mounted device that can do it. So let's be the first one. And we got in touch with the HSC and we said, I think we can do it. So they gave us a list of about 20 pages of things to go through and prove. And it took us 5 years. but we did it. And in 2023, they actually revised that guidance and took that sentence out, and then said you can now measure at the palm of the hand, and there's a clear difference between monitoring devices and measurement devices. So monitoring would be time of exposure and then relying on vibration amplitude or RMS from sources such as databases or measurements that an occupational hygienist has done in the past. And then measurement is actually measuring according to the standard, so either fixed, tool mounted, or with the handheld adapter.
How
And
has
that's
the
what we are in terms of legislation. Sorry.
No, you're fine. How has the regulation changed the worker's experience through that? What makes it look different if they're using the glove versus the old way of measuring?
Well, I think first of all, there's no disruption in the work process, and I think that actually makes it a lot more accurate, because when you come with a tool-mounted accelerometer and say, I'll follow you around and I'll measure vibration, the worker will behave differently, right? You put on his best behavior and do the job properly. But if you say, wear this for 10 days and we'll see what comes out of it at the end, and we'll implement control measures that are personalized to you, it's a very different approach, and you actually get the right environment. You get all the parameters that are important for that. So it changed the way risk assessments are done. And in terms of user experience, it allowed the worker to just do the work normally and capture the exact pattern of work and the worker behavior as well, because we measure grip force, we measure hand orientation and posture, and we get a lot more data into the risk assessment rather than just a few minutes of exposure and the trigger times or the time that the operator say he's been working with the tool.
I want to see if Scott has any questions. I've been hogging
Yeah.
all the time. I
Yeah,
saw you
no.
writing some things down.
Yeah, no, great questions and great conversation. I think you touched on it, but just wanted to go back to the beginning a little bit and understand how you identified this as an opportunity,
Okay.
to start with.
Yeah, so initially I was tracking some families. Actually, there were some families that were missing and nobody knew where they were, and I was doing factory tours to kind of understand where they are and what happened to them, because they were flagged as having some manufacturing issues, and they couldn't be implemented in engines anymore because they were dangerous. So we were trying to find out where they were, and we were going around different factories to do that. So I was in a factory and I was escorted by the health and safety manager because it was part of the roles there. And one of the workers came to speak with the health and safety manager, and I was there just witnessing the conversation. And he said, "I feel tingling and numbness, and I don't know what's I don't want to work on this anymore. Can we switch with someone?" And that kind of intrigued me, because the answer was yes, do that, change processes. But it was a very reactive way of tackling the problem, and it kind of stuck with me for a while. So I started doing some research about hand-down vibration back then, and figured out there is a real problem. So I went to the same health and safety manager and said, "You remember that guy that came and asked about that thing? I think we can probably help the whole factory if we do this." And so I proposed the whole project of measuring all the tools and measuring the vibration that every individual is feeling on the palm of their hands, and taking into account other parameters as well, like grip force, hand orientation, everything that we now measure today with the HAV Sentry. So yeah, that was how it all started.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's often interesting because it certainly not every time, but a lot of time innovation comes from outside of the industry, because you're and no criticism to the safety officer, but they're probably used to this, and you know, the response is, okay, yeah, switch, you know, with somebody else.
Yeah.
And you're coming in with a different perspective, kind of looking at it without that history, or without the, you know, understanding what the policies or procedures would be for somebody who starts experiencing that discomfort, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really interesting. You were just there listening, you know,
Yeah.
open to hearing things and looking at it differently. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I was quite lucky, really, to
Yeah.
be at the right place at the right time and just be supported, because I had a lot of support on my journey so far. You know, the BOHS community, amazing community here in the UK. The Rolls-Royce community is, you know, great community to work with, and I've learned so much from people like Alex Wilson and you know, Paul Williams, and people that I really respect and admire, and I'll probably do for the rest of my life, just because of that experience.
I'd
Tell
say
us
there's
about how.
probably a lot of lucky people, you know, that you were at
Yes.
the right place at the right time and will benefit from this launch.
Yeah.
I think that piece of collaboration is really key, especially in the early innovation journey. Can you tell us more about some of the collaborations that helped you be successful?
Yeah, so I think the BOHS initially was probably the most important collaboration I've engaged with, because that was the health and safety community, and it's really nice to. It's quite refreshing actually to attend one of their events, because, you know, they're very scientifically minded. There's no sense of let's say sales, you know, involved in that sense, and it's all about how can we make the industry better in terms of health and safety, what technology is out there. They're very open to, you know, new ideas, new technology. So initially that gave me a lot of courage and a lot of you know, a boost of confidence, in that sense that this is achievable. And then coming to university, obviously very helpful in terms of the infrastructure, so office space, computers, you know, everything we need, the basics basically were provided from day one. And then you know, lab space, research space, access to an electro shaker that could vibrate exactly how we want it to vibrate. So we've done you know, we've done CNC machining to design and make all the tool handles that industries have, to emulate all the tools. And then we've coupled them with the electro shaker, and we made them vibrate exactly how a tool would vibrate. So we had all the tools available at our disposal to test and you know, understand the ergonomics about gripping, and we you know, how grip force influences absorption, how posture influences absorption. Everything was kind of set up really within a few months of us incorporating the business. So that was amazing, yeah, in that sense. And then shareholders, as soon as we had some money, investment money, and angel investors on board, they proved to be really helpful. It wasn't just the money; it was real advice and expertise that they brought on board, and we really needed that because we were a young team, and we still work with them. You know, we have meetings every week. We have quarterly meetings on sales and development, and we get expertise from all industries, really, including legal, and you know, everything we need was kind of came into place within a space of 6 to 8 months. So that was, I think that was quite lucky. But also, you know, we were prepared to take advantage of the opportunity as well. So it wasn't just luck in that sense. We were getting ready and make sure, you know, we prepared for opportunities that we never had the chance to try out, but we were ready to you know, to be lucky.
What are the differences you've seen working with UK-based companies and US-based companies, or Canada-based companies, if you've worked with any Canadian companies?
Yes, we do work with a company in Canada that is really focused on insurance and uses our device to kind of regulate premium prices. So I think the biggest difference is really, and this is the difference between the approach of the government that kind of translates into the approach that the organization takes when it deals with us. So the government in the UK is very strict and very focused on getting control measures in place, and there is a stick behind all the organizations within the UK to do something about HAVs. In the US, there's no incentive from the government level, I think, to do something about vibration exposure, but there is still a drive to learn about it, understand what the root cause is, and raise awareness of it. So I think the US is still at the awareness level, and that's why the approach of organizations that we work with is it's very different. They want to raise awareness of the issue first, understand how this would apply. So it's a lot slower in that sense. And then, in the UK, it's a case of what have you done about HAVs in the past? And there are really only 4 choices. So you've either are unaware, so then you are liable because the government is probably just behind you. You are aware and you're using a very basic paper-based system, or some database that it was made years ago and it's kind of generalizing the approach. It's still compliant, but it's not accurate. Or you're using a monitoring device, right? So that's the options, and depending on where you are, we have a different approach to helping you get to accurate and relevant control measures. With the US, it's like I said, it's about raising awareness first, and there's different levels. So it's operator level awareness, HSC manager awareness, workforce manager awareness, and then director level awareness. So they all approach the questions differently. They all approach the whole, they have a different purpose when they talk to us. So it's it's a very interesting landscape, I think. And one other difference is the US seems to move a lot faster. So it's if there's something they like and if the technology clicks with their way of doing things, they don't, they're not scared of investing in doing it straight away, learning the hard way in that sense, right? How it works. In the UK, there's like long trials and business cases after business cases and things like that. So yeah.
How do you see companies using those operator feedback to make those decisions when they're doing trials or testing it out?
Yeah. Comfort is probably the most important one. If it's not comfortable, they will just not bother with it. And ease of use, it's probably the next thing. So yeah, I think the companies are trying to put workers at the heart of this. So every time we go into somewhere, there will be a level of all the trial metrics revolve around the operator feedback first. If we pass that, then it's quite easy afterwards because the platform itself is so much more comprehensive than a paper-based system or some other forms of managing HAVs, because our platform is essentially guiding the company through implementing control measures. So you would know what your next step is based on the data that you've collected and based on the input that you have on the dashboard. So we've actually tried to gamify control measures in that sense. So you have a progression towards 100% compliance. So yeah, I think the operators sit at the heart of a trial. That to answer your question.
It's great to hear. It's always wonderful to hear when, organizations are really taking that human-centered approach instead of a top-down approach when it comes to adopting new technology. Is there anything you haven't shared with us that you're really eager to share?
I think on that point, we did have examples of the top-down approach as well. It's just not as common. So there is a client that we work with currently that decided at the leadership level, we want this system. They bought lots of them and they just said use them, and that was a lot harder to implement. So it probably took us 3 times as much to implement, in the sense of getting the workforce on board, getting the managers on board, getting all the dashboards set up correctly, getting all the equipment in the right places. And I still think we have trouble with that client just because of that top-down approach. So it's it's difficult to say no to a client that wants to use that top-down approach, because it's a deal that we want to get done right at the end of the day. But I wouldn't really recommend doing that, and I think if we experience that again, I would advise for a more slower approach into implementing this.
What advice would you give to a company that's looking to address a problem or use a new solution?
In general, or our solution?
In general, or I mean, it could be around your solution, but just from those lessons learned, what would you suggest doing?
I think in general, it's important to first understand what are you trying to do. So it's not. I went to a health and safety. This is a good example to answer your question. I went to a health and safety event recently, here in Birmingham, UK, and one of our distributors built a stand with our product, and I was just there to observe, right? And a lot of the occupational health professionals that came to the stand to talk to us, they were just impressed by the technology and they liked it, and they were engaged straight away, and they wanted to try it and get into their working environment. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think you should come with your plan made and try to fit the technology into your plan. Because if you try to get the technology and then make the plan around it, it's not going to work as well. It might work, but you have to be either a great leader that inspires people and gets everybody on board, or just lucky in the sense of it actually fits your needs. So if you don't get your needs clear before you engage with understanding what technology you need, then it will be difficult to actually solve the problem. So that's a general, in the general view. On our solution, the advice would be try to forget everything you've learned so far about vibration, and come with a fresh mind and understand that this is not a continuously measuring or monitoring system. This is designed to implement control measures within a few months, and then you stop measuring and you just measure periodically to understand, if they are effective or not.
I
Yeah.
love that you're really focused on really understanding the problem, having your plan in place before you go look for that shiny new object or that solution. I think that really fits with the human-centered innovation approach of really listening to those users, figuring out what really matters, what's going on, and then looking to see what the right solution to adopt is and not the opposite direction. I think companies could definitely save a lot of time and energy and money if they use that versus going to a nice expo or trade show and finding
Yeah.
that really great display with a great salesperson manning it.
Exactly.
And then signing
Exactly.
on the dotted line and trying to figure out how to make it work within their organization.
Yeah.
In closing, is there anything you want to ask, Scott?
Well, no, I think just to reiterate, again, I think the common thread through Sarah, podcast, Hard Hat and Hearts, and obviously Andrei's story was that when you asked him about you know what it took to kind of be successful, he talked about comfort, you know, ease of use, privacy was important, right? And then I think you talked a little bit about benefits, right? So definitely you can't get more human centered than you know, starting with those three things. So I think the takeaway for anybody listening is you know, the value of, again, putting yourself, your product, your perspective at that human level, and working out from there. So I think that's a great message, and I think, to your point, easily forgotten when you're
Yes.
senior level of the organization and you're hoping to solve a problem or bring some new innovation to the organization. It's easy to chase the shiny objects and not look at, you know, what the real problem is and who's having the problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. It was really great to learn more about how you got to where you are today and the value of that end user feedback in the process overall. I hope you have a great rest of your day and look forward to seeing HAV Sentry in the US a little bit more.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for joining. We'll have your coordinates in the description so people can connect with you on LinkedIn and check out the company website. And definitely interested in following your growth and success. And yeah, look forward to seeing more of the brand and the product in the market.
Great. I appreciate that. And yes, we'll be at the NSC conference in September in Orlando, Florida. So yeah, check us out there.
Great. We look forward to seeing you in sunny Orlando. Thank you for everyone for listening to another episode of Hard Hat and Hearts.